Stoop, Christopher T. Feigl, Ph.D., copyright 2014. This is a true story of pet rescue in post-Katrina New Orleans. Certain names have been changed, and a few minor details have been omitted, and are marked as such. New Orleans. The sun cast its final rays as I turned back east from Baton Rouge. The other routes were supposedly out, although clear information was hard to find, so I chose the longer, surer way. Traffic on the highway died with the light. Military convoys and groups of SUVs screamed past and plunged into the future in a dystopian way. I stayed at the speed limit and no higher. Time to get John, not his real name, on the phone. We chatted for a minute, and then he passed me to a local who tried to explain the open route into the city. Completely unfamiliar, I failed and rolled straight down the highway to where it was cut off by armed National Guard manning blinking barricades. Crap. I must have passed the exit. No choice but to stop. I got my passport open to my picture and rolled down the window. Hey, I need to meet my team in the city. You can't go this way. The highway is underwater ahead. You need to turn around. Good. They are here more or less to make sure no one runs down the highway and crashes directly into the flood. Would you please tell me how go? Sure. U-turn, and they think my best bet is to take the previous exit and then work down Claiborne and St. Charles. Thanks. I U-turned and backtracked. I took the exit and headed south. The moon was either not yet out or not coming tonight at all. No working lights and no street signs made following directions impossible. I was driving over debris around blocked streets, more or less guessing my way, and I'm definitely off course and clueless as to where I am. Shit. Around 10 p.m., I suddenly drove up on a police officer sitting in his car facing out. I parked and walked over to him. Perhaps tired and weary from all the days of storm, flood, and violence, he did not welcome me coming up on him, and he was very tense. Nonetheless, he did guide me toward Causeway, which ends very inconveniently, and put me on Claiborne. I turned right and headed down some side streets, but those were blocked, so I U-turned again. I was driving east down Claiborne Avenue, over some metal roofing, and around a curve when I slammed on the brakes just before hitting a set of power lines draped across the street from a dangling telephone pole, invisible in the dark. I stop and look, but no way to get by this at all, so I turn around. As I re-round the curve, an 18-wheeler is driving at speed towards me. I start honking and yelling and blinking my lights at him, and I manage to stop him in time just before he hit those lines and likely brought the pole down on his truck. Sheer blind luck, I was exactly there, exactly then. In fact, I was the only person in the area in the heart of the city, probably for a good mile, so what were the odds? The whole place was bizarre and creepy and dark, and sort of randomly fucked up in different places. I rolled on. He was going to have to figure out how to back out of there. Finally, I made my way south down to St. Charles and then east, the open road according to my new contact on the phone. Straight ahead except for the roadblock. My expired, omitted shirt with my old omitted name tag along with my passport and freshly printed omitted signs had gotten me past all the authorities so far, but I wasn't sure if it would get me into the city proper. I was 23 hours into the trip, and I didn't want to just turn around. The guy on the phone advised using tape to create a large news sign on my car, but that seemed hard to explain if I got pulled over without press credentials. At the entrance to St. Charles was another National Guard barricade literally guarding the nation. This checkpoint looked far more serious with a half-dozen soldiers arrayed. The other one was to prevent people from going in the water. This one was to prevent people from coming into the city. Okay, go time. I pulled straight up with my passport out and began my story about meeting my team, but my outfit and vehicle signs got me waved me through. Preparation and attention to detail paid for itself time and again on this trip. Even then, it was damn close. Police, military vehicles, and SUV convoys patrolled the streets. I fell in line with some of them and just drove like I knew where I was headed. Once inside the barricade, there were no other checkpoints, so I just tried to fit in. St. Charles through the French Quarter showed signs of hurricane, but not flood damage. Not too bad. All in all, certainly some houses were heavily damaged, but mostly they were spared the real fury. Power lines, trees, signs, and garbage, some of it had been pushed to the side. This was definitely the main pipeline into the area, and the guard or whoever had probably made this as their entry into the city after Katrina was over. Except for the spare news truck and personal vehicle, it was like an army base than a city contrasting the beautiful homes in the area. A military Mardi Gras devoid of spectators. The place was obviously interrupted. People were gone, but shops and houses and mailboxes all just there. Bizarre. There was stuff everywhere. Although St. Charles itself had already been cleared of major items, each block meant driving over tons of road hazards, like shingles with nails and road signs. Sure don't want to pop a tire. Only one spare and no tire stores open. The side streets were in far, far worse shape and most impassable with trees down. These stunning estates that bordered the road in this high ground stood in stark contrast to the flooded-out shotgun shacks I would see in other lower areas, some only a few blocks away, and the completely flooded homes of the Ninth Ward. On the phone again, and now I'm under the Pontchartrain Expressway and down to the NBC station. From here, you can easily see the now infamous Superdome is waiting for me in the road as I pull up. "Hey man, nice to see you." "Yeah, nice to see you too." He is a super guy and was working private security for NBC. Very calm when things are up. It was approaching midnight and I'd been on the road for 24 hours. Grabbed me a tall, cheap beer from somewhere. "Sweet. Glad you made it." "Me too. Thanks for the help getting here." We chatted for a while and he gives me some of the layout. I was a little wired, but he has had a long day with the news people. Catch you early in the AM, and he headed to an RV to rack out. There were no spots there, and I was hesitant to leave my car anyway, so I planned to pass out in the front seat of the Land Cruiser. Better to stay separate anyway. I'm not sure of the deal yet. After the beer, I had got to go and nothing works, and no porta-johns, so I head around the corner of the NBC building. The scene is once again surreal. It is dimly lit out with no lights on, except those from a generator casting a pall over the area. Things slipped into view as I approach them and out again. I see two guys are sleeping in the middle of the 4-lane road on a large blanket clothed in t-shirts and boxers. Probably still armed, though. Even at that hour it was hot and muggy. Junk and crap and formerly useful items litter the area. Signs falling off their hinges, broken windows, siding, roof parts, trash cans. I walked a block or so to get away from other people and finally just go on the side of a building. Sorry, New Orleans, that's just the way it is right now. Worse later behind the dumpster out back. The NBC station had a small lot out front, a larger lot next door, and was bordered by the overpass of the interstate. The station lot itself housed NBC News people and other affiliates like Sky TV from Britain. They had rented RVs, and these were slotted in against the building, along with a set of SUVs and satellite trucks, behind a guard area with plastic chairs set up at the entrance to the parking lot. The larger lot had another assortment of vehicles, a gas tank and generator, and some large tents. Across the street was another parking lot where the Dateline group camped with some large RVs and a tent pitched outside of one as a command post along with SUVs and some piles of supplies. I was parked on the street in front of a convenience store with several vehicles and a large water truck parked in it. Across, in front of the TV station, was a swamp airboat complete with the mandatory camouflage paint. Not the Hilton, but not a bad setup. One news guy was walking a dog on a piece of rope. They had found him on the road and named him Overpass. His whole body wagged perhaps because he knew what a lucky dog he was to have been picked taken in, out of the thousands that now either wandered the city or were left stranded, abandoned, or locked up inside. I began straightening up the growing mess in my car. I had prepared to be self-sufficient for, and so I brought a lot of gear, chainsaw, chemical gloves, medical kit, all clean, and most of it brand new from my last-minute shopping at home, but it would only get dirty and nasty later. The gas cans in the back were bleeding fumes like mad teapots, but they were staying with me in the car. The situation down here was way too fluid, and I had to be able to get home on my own. Uncomfortable sleep and another bathroom trip, and saying hey to the people sitting up guarding the entrance to the lot. As I wandered back around the building, I picked up a couple of bead strands that lay scattered about and tossed them in the car, remnants of a New Orleans now destroyed. Aside from a sweet female Rottweiler and those beads, a bad rash would be only my parting gift from New Orleans. In all night, I heard the helicopters circling the city. Police and military vehicles randomly patrolled by shining lights at me, dozing in the front seat. It was serious business. I woke well before dawn. I got up and pulled out my map to orient myself. John was up at some point, and he swiped me some coffee and breakfast from the Dateline folks. We ate and talked, and I had general introductions with some people eating with us. Most people are here for the story. Period. Not John, though. He was on a security detail, driving and guarding the NBC national news crew. With the violence that had gripped the city as it fell, the news people had hired out security details and were taking no chances. His group had a detail lead, then him and 3 or 4 other people. In addition, various police guarded the immediate area. At least some were New Jersey State Police, although I'm not sure how they got their assignment. He had already been there a few days, and he told me that it was crazy at first, but when the airborne arrived, they put the hammer down on the violence. I would see them at different times, always very professional and very alert, walking in squad formations, with a lead out front and a sweep in the back. I gave them some water as they came through, but they kept eyes on, their training showing through. The guy with the swamp boat and one other local guy really were interested in helping New Orleans. Not that the news folks weren't helping. They were by broadcasting the story of the area that may have driven some resources and decisions, but their expansive coverage of the smallish violence certainly quashed any civilian efforts. As a group, they selfishly viewed this as the story, rather than a moment in time when they individually could have made great differences. The swamp boat guy was deceiving, a full head of wild hair, a full beard, and also fully armed. "I thought you were bringing a boat?" he asked. Yes, I was. I tried for days to get a damn hitch put on my truck so I could grab my dad's John boat, but ultimately I couldn't make it happen. Finally, I just could not wait any longer, so I bagged it and bought some extra thick neoprene waders and just came down. 8. The other guy asked if he could have one of my "I can be back" omitted signs. He was coming in and out of the city and was starting to get hassled. The rumor was that everyone was soon going to need a FEMA badge to get through the checkpoints from now on. I'd made some extra signs, so I gave him one. Resources at the area between the 3 news groups were shared when they were freely available, but held close when not. Gasoline for electricity in particular. By the time I arrived, they had a fuel tank and a water truck and had made arrangements for more, so it wasn't an issue. The area had a particular smell that is hard to describe. Not acute like swamp gas, more of a pervasive smell of everything, as if all sorts of things had been poured out and mixed together. A guy was walking a cute small dog on a rope, and I walked over and began petting the little fellow. Some of the news people had adopted dogs. This one he named Overpass, since he was found on the highway, probably where those poor people were put with no food and water for days. Another dog was also quite friendly. John began telling me about his time there so far and about how the airborne units had arrived and really quelled any violence. I asked about all the bodies reported on news to be floating around, and he told me that it really wasn't the case and that mostly the city was full of abandoned pets. Lots and lots of them, and it was tearing him up. Museum. John told me the morning plan. We are going to go with Tom Brokaw to the World War II Museum. Brokaw was very unhappy that the museum he dedicated, and really one of his personal legacies, was entirely looted. John went and got the SUV ready. "I'm going to follow. We are leaving soon." "Or not. Hurry up and wait." I have time, so I straighten up the truck, back sitting in the circle at the entrance. Pretty crazy here before the airborne arrived. Once they got here, they shot a couple people and everyone left town. I asked about the news of the bodies floating around. Haven't really seen any. It's the dogs that are the problem. They are loose or trapped everywhere. Terrible. I never found out any more about the supposed shootings from the airborne. Not sure if true. John is apologetic. We aren't moving. It's the news people, and that is the way it is. I'm still getting grounded, and I have no set plan, so no problem. 9 a.m., and we are finally rolling. Up front, me 2 cars back. 2 minutes later, and we arrive. It is just around the goddamn block, it turns out. Are you kidding me? Anyway, we're out, and the group goes in, greeted by an older museum guy. Obviously, it's been looted. What a waste. It is also clear that this is a straight human interest story outing and is not actually about doing anything. I turned around in the lobby, gave the sign I was headed out. He signaled, "Catch you later." I came to help, so time to go get started. Back in the car, I pulled out my map and looked at what I know and where I am. I don't know much, it turns out. I guess I'll head over to the area east of Canal. Fix me. Make sure I have the geography right in this section. I head that way into a line of traffic and end up on Canal, the bait pool of the media feeding frenzy. Tents, tarps, backdrops, lights, each set up in their very own spot for their very own shot. A carnival, really. Also moving was a lot of military and emergency traffic. Troop carriers, fire trucks, a bulldozer scraping debris into a pile on a corner. Probably the most populated area in New Orleans at the time. An SUV is broken, straddling a ditch, probably driving in the water and couldn't see it. Fucked that thing up. A warning to me. More and more destruction, and it just plain stink as I head east towards the 9th Ward and into sets of barricades, manned and unmanned, keeping everyone out, even the media. From what I could see, the area was completely underwater and devastated. I wouldn't have been much help there. I was pushing my luck, so I backed out and decided another tact. I crossed back west and then south to the river. This was the high ground, so I turned around and drove down and north until I reached the flooded area of the Garden District. I pulled left and parked by a downed tree in the street at the edge of the water. Time to get on it. First, I got out and started pulling out my backpack and loading it up. Tarps, rope, GPS, and a permanent marker to wrap, mark, and retrieve bodies, some bottled waters, and a medical kit, and a small knife. A troop truck rolled by down one block, slowing for a few seconds to check me out before moving on. I stripped and changed to my rail rider pants and put on my waders. Knife, map, and a water bottle go into the front chest pocket for easy access. The waders are the thickest I could find, and standing on the pavement, I was already baking hot in them. Sweaty but ready, I began walking north into the clearly contaminated water. Part water, part biohazard, part poison. It was dark and stinky. As the water had risen, it flushed out all the gas and oils from the cars, mixed it with all sorts of sewage, and then all the chemicals and contaminants from the houses and businesses. I had not really expected it to be this bad, but I was there and committed, so I walked through the shallow water for about 2 blocks. On the street to my right, 2 dogs, one black, one brown, stood in the open doorway of an attached shotgun shack, barking. Bark, bark, bark. On and on and on. I waded over and they moved deeper inside the house and continue barking. Probably they would guard their house until the family returned, if they ever did. Very sad. They were thin and traumatized, but not too bad off. I emptied a planter sitting on the steps and put some water for them in the base just inside the house. They barked viciously at me. Probably nice dogs, but I did not need to get bitten, so I left them and moved on. I wade 1 more block north. Ahead there are buildings that appear to be apartments or projects, a painting on a cement wall about the mayor or some initiative or something. All initiatives were now canceled, that's for sure. I turned east down LaSalle. The water was a bit shallower. I heard more barking ahead. Jimmy Seafood, it turns out. An unneutered pit bull stood by the building just out of the water, snarling at me. Lying near him, a dead kitten is starting to mummify. There is even more vicious barking coming from inside, but I can't get near enough to the door to see because of the pit. I try to get him to trust me and coax him away from the door, but that fails, so I found a jar lid and leave him a small amount of fresh water. I turn north again. The water becomes deeper and darker. I begin the never-ending process of feeling my way, kicking curbs and walking into fire hydrants. Later, it would add submerged cars, downed trees, house debris, and fences for more fun and pain. I waded past the projects, failed brick tragedies now desolate, and then a school. My progress slows as it gets deeper. It is up to my chest, so I tightened up my wader straps. So far, no bodies, no people, no nothing. Just me bleeding sweat as I trudge wade, block after block, in this miserly heat. I continue through a field. I guess it is a field since nothing is sticking out above the water. On the far side is a McDonald's. Damaged from the winds and now flooded, it was in bad shape. From the map, I am at Claiborne. I can see a Pizza Hut, so I head over there, also torn up. Across Claiborne is a strip mall with a grocery store and a cleaner. Flooded cars abound in its parking lot. Over to my right, there is a garage with a car hoist. Someone got clever and put their car up on it to avoid the flood, but the dark brown crest line that decorates every building in the area striped right down the side of that car, and it was ruined. I start towards the back of the strip mall. Deeper and deeper, I wade on tiptoes to keep going, but I'm flooding my waders. Water for sure, but layered with gas, oil, ammonia, bleach, solvents, and other poisons. But what can you do? Okay, I've gone as far as I can go north without being underwater. I turn back to Claiborne and take a break, a rest up against a pole, and drink more water. Hot. I head west down Claiborne, and then I turn down the first intersection. The crossroad bends confusingly through, and I cannot even tell where the road is in this lake. At least the white ford nearby clearly shows the water is receding with its dark concentric rings. Straight ahead, there are 3 dogs on a porch barking at me. Well, not a porch. Turns out to be the roof of some other porch, part floating, part resting upside down over the real porch, joists and all. They are barking like they have lost their minds. As I approach, they scramble to get as close as possible to attack or defend or whatever. They were big dogs once, probably beautiful, now ratty and thin. Certainly not neutered. Hey, buddies. Hey, puppies. Good boys. No amount of nice talking stops them from snapping and biting at me. They are just out of their minds with all that has happened. I back off. The water is well over their heads here, and if they come off of that porch trying to get me, they will have nowhere to go. Not for blocks and blocks and blocks. I cannot take them with me, and I do not want to get bitten trying to hoist them back up. This is just fucking sad. I can do little for them, but give them some water. I need to find a container. A garbage can lid is nearby, so I toss it over to a corner of the roof. It is too large to fit between the joists. I fake the dogs over to another side, and then rush back and pour some water into it. Shit, here they come. They spill it as they try to get me. Fuck. They were snapping and fighting each other and out of their minds trying to get at me. I need something better, and I'm just about out of water. I find a metal tin and try the routine again, with better success, barely escaping being bitten. They alternated between drinking and trying to bite me. Goodbye, guys. Nothing I could do about it. They have no place to go, and I cannot get them to dry land, so I waded on down the block. Oh my God, another fucking dog, also barking but locked behind a gate with barbed wire on the second floor of a small apartment building, unable to even get to the filthy floodwater. Sorry, buddy, nothing I can do. My water is gone. I could have used the water I'm wading through, but I had nothing to put it in and no way to get it to him. By now, I was simply depressed. This was even more terrible than other 3 dogs. He was barking at me like I'm an intruder, so I spent a few minutes or two trying to just talk to him to calm him down. I was struck by thoughts of my dog back at home, my main man, a guy I love. What would I do? What are these owners feeling? They must be out of their minds to leave them or be forced to leave them. The military had no plans to let people back in. None. They were still making sure everyone was gone. These animals are doomed. I left the poor guy and waded on, heading south down the road. Another surreal scene. At the end of the block there is an abandoned John boat with no motor tied to a stop sign floating in what would be the middle of an intersection. Probably used by someone or ones to escape from the flood and then tied up here. Perhaps it was the water's edge at that point. It's well over waist deep now, and it had been feet higher before. I am tempted to take it. I had wanted to bring a boat, but with no motor or paddles, it's not very useful. Still, I hadn't seen a single soul out here unless you count the helicopters. Oh well, I leave it there. Having given up all my water and wearing those thick waders, I was dehydrating rapidly. I knew I needed to get out of there right away. I waded the rest of the way back to the car. I tossed back a whole bottle of warm water as I undressed. Backpack, waders, shirt, pants, boxers, socks are all soaking wet with sweat and floodwater, and so I stripped down and lay them out across the mound of gear in the back of the truck. Nude, for a few minutes, I just leaned against the car and recovered. In the middle of nowhere, break. That didn't help, and I was hot as shit on the point of being delirious, so I dressed and headed out. I slugged down a second bottle of warm water as I drove back to camp. No AC in the truck. It didn't have it when I bought it used, and I never fixed it. Wish I had. Idiot. I parked along the road by NBC and passed out in the front seat for 20 minutes or so. I'm still steaming hot, and there is no cooling down today, so I get back up. I am filthy dirty, so I clean off my head, face, and arms with some bleach wipes. John was back from the museum, and we meet up. I told him what I've been up to. He told me about their trip and Brokaw's interview with the curator. Go next door and get yourself some lunch. Are you sure? They have set up a lunch area in the parking lot next door. I was not really part of the deal here, so I was hesitant, but whatever, so I got a sandwich, chips, and the world's best cold soda. I wolfed it down and chat with some of the other folks there, mostly news people, but also cops and fire and rescue guys. I got back out of my semi-stupor, back to reality. Now I knew what I needed to do. Take care of the business with those dogs. There was no help coming for them. I needed to get some supplies, and I would try to grab that boat. I had some dog food in the car randomly left from travels with my dog, but not much. I know the Dateline people have some dogs they adopted, so I walked over to their area, the core of which is a large RV. They were all phone talking and laptop typing. John told me the name of the lady in charge, so I asked around and found her. She seemed busy, but when I told her that I need some dog food for pets trapped out in the water, she dropped it all and set about getting me a couple of bags. They had sent people for supplies, and they had gotten a bunch. She also gave me a few gallons of water and a large cooler that I filled from the water truck next door. Damn good of her. Drive. With a Category 5 hurricane coming to a city below sea level with known deficient levees, you would think everyone would have left. The mayor would have made evacuations mandatory. Buses would have been laid on for transportation of those didn't have it. The city would have had an orderly evacuation. People would have helped each other and taken their pets. Obviously, none of that happened, and the city crashed like a downed plane thudding on her belly, her lousy mayor and corrupt police force, acting pilot and co-pilot. Looting and shooting and bodies and reporters and people on roofs and overpasses and everywhere destruction. Stink and foul water. The Superdome. Spare bright points like the professionalism of the Coast Guard response barely dented the chaotic mess of people abandoned or treated like refugees and the city an armed camp under a siege mentality. Day after day on the TV it was maddening to watch. No end in sight and no relief for the city. Maybe thousands of bodies lying around according to the news reports. Maybe 10,000 people died in total. Floating here, tied there, just left lying on the sidewalk. Unacceptable. That's it. I was going. I couldn't just let bodies float around and be treated like garbage. Someone needed to go and bag them, mark them, make sure their families can find out what happened to their loved ones. I'm sure as hell not scared. My buddy John had arrived down there, and he and I spoke to him about coming, and we laid on a general plan. I called my dad to see if he wants to go. He passes, but is supportive of me going. He will lend me his John boat, which is awesome. Mom is supportive, too. Odd. They are great, but I expected they would be a little more negative on the trip. Perhaps over the years I've beaten them down. Maybe they've just given up on me. Maybe they thought it needed to be done. Not really sure, but I definitely appreciated their support. I called another close friend, name omitted, a strong, tough kid, and with a good head. I don't fear him getting hurt, as I would most others. He also is not interested. Too bad. I could use the company. On the other hand, I'm not someone who always has to be surrounded by people, so onward. To haul Dad's boat down, I needed a hitch on my Land Cruiser. Over at the local Pep Boys, I explained what I was doing, and they ordered it up for me to come in the next day. I rolled over there, but they have ordered the wrong one, and they couldn't get one for a few days. Crap. That's a problem. I decided to bag the hitch and boat and leave that night. My boss was great, and she agreed to let me take vacation. Before I headed home to pack, I stopped by the Student Health Center at the university, who agreed to give me some shots, even though they won't be effective before the trip. I had worked with them plenty before, and they gave me special treatment, not without a few looks, though. "Are you going with a group? One of our electricians is down there." No group. I'm going down by myself." They thought that probably unwise. Oh, well, I don't really care what people think, and I don't really care that people don't want to come. I am going. Solo trip, it seems. Sort of, anyway. At least John is there. Prep. I mounted up again with my new supplies and drove out. My Land Cruiser is reeking of gasoline in the heat. Mirage waves were rolling up the blacktop. Back up St. Charles, and then north. I saw a scrawny, ratty-looking small dog. One of many roaming the streets, it turns out. I pulled over to try to help, but it took off, booking it down the road. I put some food and water into 2 little styrofoam bowls in case it returns. That little bit of water wasn't going to last long in the heat. I need to get some better water and food holders. I began driving slowly through the neighborhood, stopping when I saw something useful, mostly trash can lids and then a good bucket. I found a white tub, unfortunately with a hole, and a few more items in the yards and alleys of these abandoned homes, and tossed them into the car. As I was doing this, I turned and drove east and ran into a squad of police officers on patrol crossing the street. "Hey, what are you doing here?" "I'm just feeding and watering the pets." Oh, thank God someone is. This is breaking our hearts. We are animal lovers, but our orders are that we only deal with people and ignore the animals. Orders are orders, but they all nodded that doing nothing was hard for them. "Where are you guys from?" "Chicago." They had been there for a few days now. They tell me that they just passed a house with a dog in it, about 2 blocks back. All right, I'll go over there and help it out. They thanked me and departed. I turned south and went back down the 2 blocks, but I could not hear any dog barking in that area. I whistled and called and listened as I went from house to house, but I just could not find which house had the dog in it. Finally, I had spent enough time on that task, and I had to give it up. Sorry, guys, I tried. Sucks. But time was ticking, and I needed to get a move on. I had a whole lot of ground to cover, and I already knew that I did not want to be out alone in that water after dark. Second, I wanted to park closer to where I found the boat, so after a bit of driving, I headed up Harmony until I'm driving in the water and cannot go further. I pull right and into a church parking lot, just a few doors down from the first 2 dogs. They continue barking like mad. One is more curious than the other, and he ventures into the water towards me a bit. Waders back on with only boxers, socks, and my EMT shirt this time. Too hot for pants. First things first, so I waded over and gave the 2 dogs more water and some food. Think medical kit, and you probably imagine some nice soft-sided high-quality bag, perhaps with a Red Cross patch. Not mine. Over the years it had evolved, or devolved, from a toolbox at the rescue squad to a dry bag for search and rescue to now a simple clear plastic tub with a white lid. I want to record where these dogs are to tell someone to get them real help. Who, though? There is no one to tell. I need something waterproof, so I took the lid of that medical kit and a blue permanent marker and write down 1. 2 dogs, Harmony and Liberty. I wade out the 5 blocks to the boat. I'll retrieve it first and then get set. I pass the projects again. A large metal sign high up on one of the brick tenements read, "Animal fighting is not allowed." Well, no shit. What the fuck is wrong with this place that people need to be told that? I just can't imagine. Cool. The boat was still there. I was worried about that. Probably no one left to take her, but for that, I'm glad. I untied her and towed her back near the car. I loaded her up with all the donated water and food and all of the lids, tubs, and buckets I had gathered, and once again started out. Before I went back to the 3 dogs over near Claiborne on the upside-down roof on the porch, I walked back to Jimmy's. The little bit of water I had left is gone, so I get out a couple of styrofoam bowls and left more, along with a pile of dog food. The pit bull still wouldn't let me near the building, so I couldn't help the dog barking inside. Probably died at some point. Just one more anonymous tragedy. I write 2 dogs and the address of Jimmy's. Turning back west and then north, I passed where the boat had been tied and up to the 3 dogs. As I approached, they growled and snapped and tumbled over each other in an attempt to get at me. As that happens, they got into a fight with the 3 of them all going at it. I step back fearing they will leap at me and drown in the water. Approaching again, they almost got me a few times, but I managed to trick them to one side by tossing some food over to one corner and then putting a bowl down and quickly filling it with water. They rushed back at me and I pulled away. Trying again to now get some food in a container, I threw some morsels and then set down the trash can lid and poured dog food in it. They spilled the bowl of water as they again tumbled and fought on their way to me. Fucking hell. 3rd time, and I grabbed the bowl and put it between 2 of the rafters and refilled it and moved away rapidly. They didn't spill it, but they were fight each other over the food since they were literally starving. Can't do anything about that. They would just have to work it out. Thankfully, I escaped unbitten, but damn, it was close. I can't blame the dogs, but I can blame just about everyone else. Their owners, they mayor, every other person who failed this cursed city. Out of respect, I decided not to take photos of the dogs since they are unlikely to live through this, and this isn't some photo op. I did snap a low-res camera phone pic of a formerly white Ford as I pass it. The Ford shows the water is definitely draining out of the city. Good job, Corps of Engineers. Next up is the dog trapped in the apartment building. I had thought about this back at camp and had saved a bucket for it. Tying some rope around the handle, I tossed it over the fence and got it down to the landing, finally standing upright as the dog barked and growled at me. I climbed up the lower part of the fence, tricky in the clumsy waders, and sloshed water through it, getting as much into the bucket as I could. I tied the rope off so that the bucket was almost hanging and would be hard to tip over. Then I threw handfuls of food all over the landing and up at the top where the apartment was. Enough, I hope, until real help can get here. Otherwise, this dog was dead too. I'm feeling pretty guilty about not taking these dogs, but I can't get to this one, and the other ones are pretty much going to bite the living shit out of me if I could even get them into the boat. If they jumped out of the boat, I probably wouldn't be able to get them back in, and they would have nowhere to go unless they swam all the blocks back to the shallows. Better that they stay for now and hope real help arrives soon. Aside from the helicopters, the only noise in the entire area was the barking of trapped dogs, so I knew that others were still in need. A quick water break for me, and then time to keep moving. I headed out and was wading down Claiborne when a very large U.S. military truck rolled up. The tires were taller than I was. It made a large wake as they pulled to the stop. I struggled to keep it out of my waders, and the boat rocked wildly and tipped over stuff in it. "Sorry, buddy," they yelled. "No problem," I replied. We talked for a minute. They were on patrol, and I was helping out. Good guys. They rolled on westward more slowly than they arrived. I turned south at the next block. I looked at my map, now wet and falling apart. "Hey, photos, please laminate your maps." And turned west down the next street. I yelled and whistled to see if I could stir up any more responses as I went, and then headed south, towing the boat like a donkey. I found a house with a dog barking inside. Perhaps the owners had left enough food and water, but most likely thinking they would be back in a day or two, they had not. Protecting the front door, the house had a very strong security gate. I struggled to make any headway with it, but after a time I was able to reach through and get the front door open by prying off the knob. No way I could get through that damn gate. With the door open, I could see the little frenzied guy, and he or she seemed friendlier than the most. I redoubled my efforts enough to bend part of the gate and set some of my styrofoam bowls down with food and water. Not enough for more than one day, that is for sure. I added one more address to the lid of my medical kit. Between the sun and the muck I was wading through, I was definitely struggling with the heat, and my mood was becoming black as the water. I waded back east and in the general direction of the car. I am not sure when dark is going to be here, but I want to be gone before then. It is still too easy to get shot in this mess of a city. Up ahead on a piece of dry ground, I saw an older guy walking with a cane, probably someone who decided not to leave his home. Before I got near enough, I could hear another dog. I figure out it is in the left side of a duplex up a flight of stairs. Unfortunately, the door is metal and very secure, and although I tried my best, I could not get through it. Damn, I'll have to come back for you tomorrow. Another one for the list. Hot, tired, and blistered, and sore from dragging this fucking boat. I'm ready to leave again. This has eaten up hour after hour, and dark can't be too far away. As I get back to where I started, it is obvious that the water is a little bit lower. Finally, a bit of good news. The Army Corps of Engineers draining is definitely working quickly. I am able to see progress. I had better not leave the boat where it will be on dry ground, so I tie her up in about 2 feet of water, grab the cooler, and head to the car. Airborne. I was finally back at the car. With the boat a few blocks away, I had to make a few trips hauling my crap. I wanted to continue using the boat, but I had no way to take it with me. I ended up pushing it against a house on one of the streets and retied her. Soggy dog food sloshed in the bottom. Back at the car, I stripped down to my boxers, poured some water over my head, and just hung out for a few minutes decompressing. I was a mess. I got dressed and loaded up when I heard something. A yell? From where? The only person I had seen was the old man with the cane earlier. Did I really hear something? I tentatively yelled back and hear a more distinctive shout. I put my boots on and walked out into the street and looked down the block to the dry land where an armed airborne patrol was arrayed. "Hey, you! Come over here!" I trotted over towards them. "Hold up there! What are you doing here?" I was standing in the water about 10 yards away. "I'm just feeding and watering the pets," I started to explain. Suddenly, "What is that in your hand?" They tensed and brought their weapons up on me. I had a big oh shit moment. "My car keys!" I yell. I delicately jingled and then opened my fingers and dropped, showing them my empty hands. They relaxed. I'm parked just over there by the church, and I've been waiting out, leaving food and water for these trapped dogs. Have you seen a black guy carrying some stuff around here? No, only me. The helicopter was reporting a black man carrying something over this way. No, I only saw the one guy, and that was hours ago, and he was an older black man, walking with a cane. But I'm wearing brown waders and my marathon hat, and I was carrying my water cooler and medical kit from the boat back to the car. They got back on the radio with a helicopter. No, old man, are you sure? Yeah, he says he was carrying a cooler and feeding dogs. Okay, go and get your car and come right back here. Back at the Land Cruiser, I finished loading up and drove back to them. I showed them the list of addresses and numbers of dogs I had written on the top of my medical kit tub. They looked over the car briefly, but the fact that everything in the car was clean except for what I had worn or had taken in the boat made it pretty easy to see I wasn't looting. That and the bags of dog food and the addresses on my medical kit lid with the numbers and types of pets located there convinced them I was okay. These guys were really easygoing, probably served in Iraq, and some unarmed idiot in New Orleans, stupid enough to go wading through the polluted water to help animals didn't pose any real threat to them. They let me drive away. I did not know it then, but I would see them again, and this little encounter might well have just saved my butt. Mardi Gras. I was up very early and got ready. Others were up too. News is morning business, apparently. Overpass and the other dog got walked. Coffee. Morning business. I filled my cooler from the water truck parked in the ruined gas station/mini-mart next door. I got more supplies from the NBC/Dateline crew. Special treat. Cans of dog food, care of someone's Baton Rouge supply run, and more gallons of water. These folks were very generous. One of the lady reporters with the Dateline crew asked to go out with me. It would have been nice to have someone else along, but she's not very tall, and would my other waiters even fit? Not sure. There was no way I could let her separate from me. I would have to tow her in the boat in order to cover the area I want, and this shit was hard enough without a passenger. Moreover, if I took her, though, I would actually have to take care of her and make sure she does not get hurt, which seems somehow very likely. Sorry, ma'am, I would love to, but no. I would later regret not having her along, but in life you just make your decisions as you go and try not to screw up. She told me that she misunderstood what I was doing. She thought I was just driving around helping the dogs, and she was glad not to have gone out into the water. Driving back to the church, I meandered through more side streets in the area, once again looking for items large enough to hold a good amount of water, past damaged homes and littered yards. I see a trash can lid and grab it. A bucket, but it has hole in it. Pickings were slim. A little dog was scampering around. I pulled over and tried to coax it with a can of dog food. No chance. It hightailed it away from me. I poured out a part bag of dog food and left some water in a nearby lid in case he returns. Another block. Another dog. This one I had seen before. A little yellow dog. I pulled over, but he was fast, and he scampered off. No knowing his fate. I left more food and more water. Then I saw a Rottweiler, scared, but not moving away too fast. A female, wagging her tail down between her legs. Oh, baby. She was a little lover. Slowly I coaxed her over and eventually put some rope around her. She was very happy to have some human company. I pet her for a while, and she licks me. I load her up into the car and drive on. All she wants to do is climb into my lap, all the way over me. Hey, scoot over, I'm driving. I push her back to the passenger side. She's too large, perhaps 80 pounds, and is redefining the phrase, dirty dog. She is in absolute love with me, though, and won't take no for an answer. What a sweetie. We're only a few blocks short of the church, and she deserves some love, so I let get settled, only partly on me. I stroke her head as we drive, and she just sighs and relaxes as if she's glad it is finally all over. I decided then and there to name her Mardi Gras. I pulled into the church and park, and I set up a bunch of little bowls full of water and tied her to the car. She can get shade underneath, I figured. Not ideal, and I was nervous she would choke herself, but that's all I had. I suited up again in my waders. Third, the water was lower again. Great news. The draining was definitely working. This section of town was looking better. I walked over to the boat, and it was almost on dry land now and partially sat on the bottom. I dragged it to some deeper water in the middle of the street before loading it up. I headed back out. I had been back over my map, and I planned to cover the rest of the area up to Claiborne and then over to Napoleon. But first I returned to Last Dog and refilled his food and water bowls before turning west. I was wading along, yelling and whistling to try to get the animals to bark or cry so I could find them. When further down the block I saw some other people in a boat pulled up in front of a house. As I approached, I could see it was 3 people. Turns out 2 were with the Humane Society of the U.S., and they were out to more or less do what I was doing. The 3rd was a camera person, and he began taking my picture as I approached. "Please don't take my picture," I said. "Okay." He put the camera down. We all introduced ourselves. The HSUS folks were Jane Garrison and Drew Moore. Jane would stay in New Orleans helping pets for months to come. They had stopped at this house, thinking they heard a dog. Unfortunately, we were not able to locate it. I told them what I had been up to and showed them where I had been on my map and where I intended to go. I gave them the top of my med kit where I had written the addresses and numbers of the animals I had found so far so they could go and get them later. They seemed like the best destination for this information. In fact, the only destination. They told me they had come in from where they had parked on Napoleon. "Okay, seems like this area is covered. We'll go to a different one." Since they and I were the only ones out here doing this, there was no point in having both efforts in the same place, so they decided to move on. We parted ways, me still heading west. I looked back, and the camera person had his camera back up in my direction. Still yelling and whistling, I turned north the block before Napoleon. There, my blood froze as I looked to my right and saw spray-painted on a garage in giant letters the words, "Poisonous snakes." Holy cow. I already knew there was nothing in the entire R for those snakes to eat. If they were loose, I was the only living thing in the area. There are no birds, no mice, nothing but me standing in a giant lake. I better get the fuck out of here right now. I would look pretty stupid floating around, bloated up dead because of a snake bite. Who is raising poisonous snakes in the city anyway? And who had painted that? I double-time it up to the next block before relaxing again. As I weaved in and out of the blocks, I thought I heard another dog, but again I could not find it. I think it must have been in the back room of a house somewhere, and it got quiet as I neared. I reluctantly moved on. For every dog I helped, I was pretty sure there were dozens I missed. A helicopter that had been circling high above decided to come down for a closer look, much closer. As it came down to within a few tens of yards, it began lifting and spraying the water around me. Bad enough, but then it got even closer, driving it into my eyes and nose. God damn it, dude. Do you know what is in this fucking water? I was choking on it. Forget getting it on my skin. I was now ingesting it. You're fucking choking me with it. I started waving them off and lifted up my shirt sleeve to show them my old, omitted badge. Piss off. No use, they stayed there. I couldn't see anyway, so I just covered up my face and started to wait on towing the boat behind me. Eventually they flew off, no telling why. I probably should have taken that as a warning sign. I waited up on 2 dogs on a second-story front porch, barking and howling at me. That's kind of tricky. I wasn't sure at first how to get them some water. I decided to go with the old bait and switch. I opened up some little cans of dog food and got out a bowl I had been saving. I climbed up the stairs and then onto the lower railing. I slipped and almost busted my ass in my waterlogged waders, but I managed to catch myself and pull up to the edge of the porch, standing on my tiptoes. The dogs went ballistic, barking and snapping at me through the rail, so I lobbed the cans over into the far corner. They took the bait, and I slid the bowl under the railing and filled it with water. I worked my way back down and got some dry food out of the boat, climbed partway back up, and tossed it up onto the porch. I had given away the top to my medical kit, so I started a new list on a styrofoam bowl, and moved on again. Stoop. The house in the last few blocks were pretty cute at one time, but no longer. At least the core had the level dropping, so maybe they would be out of the standing water, but the heat and humidity inside turned them into mold factories combined with all the various chemicals. I wonder if the structures could be saved, or if they would just cause health problems forever. In my own little world, when I heard and saw a little pit bull puppy, and he started barking madly at me. He was standing on a porch column post, covered in his excrement. The porch itself was completely underwater. I realized he must have stood right there on that post for 9 days. The water had only just dropped enough that it wouldn't have been well over his head anywhere else. My heart completely broke. As he continued just screaming viciously at me, I waited before approaching. I took out my camera phone and snapped 2 photos. I said I didn't take photos of dogs I thought would probably die, but I was going to get this dog out come hell or high water, and I was waist deep in both. 9 days. 9. Where was everybody? Why did this have to be this way? All goes back to the media and all the stories of looting and dead bodies scaring off anyone without big enough brass balls to break into the city and help. Completely ridiculous, and hopefully a lesson learned for the future. Get off your asses, people, and help out when things go wrong. There was no reason for these pets to be left out here to suffer and die. A pitiful response, and I expect better in the future. I was numb from what I was realizing he went through, but a name for him popped into my mind while I waited for him to calm a bit. Stoop. I slowly approached, talking nicely with a little bowl of food out in front. Talking nicely, softly, saying his new name. He carried on like he was going to tear me up, but his little tail starting wagging from between his legs, and I could see his demeanor change a little. Still, as I got right up to him, I thought he was going to give me a bite. But he didn't, and let me reach out to him and give him a pet. Then he started in on the food, wolfing it down like only the most ravenous can. I had only put a little food in there not to kill him, and he just tore it up. I was now petting him, and he was loving on me, just kissing and kissing me. Oh, the sweetest little boy. I could now really see the effects that this had had on his body. Starvation thin, but his little spirit was just brightening. I was hugging and kissing him and vice versa. Little champion survivor. He let me pick him up, and he just licked my face as I carried him over to the boat. I worked to put some water in a bowl, and he just kept loving on me. As he drank, I moved to the front of the boat and got the rope to begin towing her, but he just leapt out of the boat and swam towards me. I grabbed him and put him back in the boat, but leapt out again when I went to the front. I finally had to stand on the side of the boat and pull her along so he could be near me. Stoop stood touching me as much as he could, and I talked to him as we went along. A fun little time, and he was so happy and loving. I was surprised that a dog so thin could have so much energy. We were fast big pals. Standing on the side of the boat pulling her along was a lot more difficult and was twisting my back. I would go a bit and then have to take a break and switch sides. I decided I needed to head directly out with Stoop. I was also anxious to check on now named Mardi Gras too. Hope she was okay under the car back there. Camp. I finally got back to the car. Mardi Gras was just fine. She and Stoop got along well, thank goodness, and they sniffed each other and sort of became friends too. I left Mardi Gras tied and quick-tied Stoop to the front of the car and did the same load out as before. I dragged the boat even deeper out into the water and tied her up since I wasn't sure how quickly it was draining and if I would even come back to this area. I wouldn't see her again. She had served me well, though. Odd she was just sitting tied up in the middle of an intersection. Maybe as the flood was coming in, someone used her to get out when that was dry land. She was only a few blocks from where I found her, so that had to be good enough. Stoop and Mardi Gras. Now I had 2 dogs and no plan. I put them both in the car. When I jumped in, they both snuggled against me with Mardi Gras, finally winning and lying almost fully in my lap. I headed back south and then east, falling in line with all kinds of military vehicles and back to camp. I gave the dogs a quick walk and then tied them up to the car with some food and water. Friendly news folks came by and gave them some love and heard their story. I was starving, and they got me past the cops guarding the lot, around the gas truck, and into the line for the BBQ camper now stationed in the lot. Delicious, and an ice-cold Coke at a picnic table under a large tent. Thanks, that was awesome. Had a little conversation with some of the other folks there, rescue workers mostly, and relaxed a minute. Chef. I had to decide what to do with the dogs. I sort of offered them to some of the NBC people, but ultimately I decided to keep Stoop and give Mardi Gras to the HSUS people I saw that morning. They had said they were going back to Napoleon Avenue where they were parked. I left Stoop with the Dateline RV folks and drove back off west. But I couldn't find them. Maybe I got the name wrong, or maybe they were gone by that time. But I was out of luck. I wasn't sure what to do, and I didn't really want to keep just driving around, so I tried to find someone who may have seen them. I drove up on a guy loading up his car from a restaurant and stopped. Turns out it was Chef Emile, and he was really nice. He hadn't seen them, but thought the ASPCA were up in the 9th Ward. He was retrieving some things before heading back out of town. Very nice, and he offered me a peanut butter sandwich and a diet soda. Funny too, probably not what he normally serves to people, but he was happy to share what he had with him. We talked for a bit as I munched the sandwich, and he was pretty sad about what had happened to New Orleans. Hope things turned out all right for him. I headed back east and rolled towards the 9th Ward. On the way, I see an SUV that is totaled. It had crashed straight into a deep ditch that they must not have seen. Probably underwater at the time. Bad mistake for them, but a good lesson for me to be careful. I finally see a cop sitting up on an on-ramp and drive up to him and ask about the ASPCA. He said, "Go up and over the ramp and follow that big truck." Okay, I head up and cross over and drive down an on-ramp the wrong way towards the truck. It is another one of those very large military trucks, and it is heading north through the water. It's maybe 100 yards again, and I start in behind it. The water is getting deeper and deeper, and I'm maybe that same 100 yards in now. Still following, I am getting very nervous. I do not need to end up a refugee here. Go, stop, back up. Not sure what to do, because if I should lose my forward momentum, or if I reverse, I might will stall the engine. And I definitely sure I don't want to sit idling. Now the water is well up over the hood. I can't turn around because I cannot see the road. No idea where curbs or barriers are. It deepened further, and it is decision time. It is about to swamp the car. I threw it into reverse and started backing up quickly to keep the motor speed up. Fortunately, it doesn't drown out. I'm pushing up a huge wave of water from the back of the car. I back up trying to stay where I had been remembering the SUV I just saw, while trying to keep some momentum again. I end up backing up over a concrete median strip with a big jolt and pop back up the off-ramp. Shit, that was close. Another car would have flatted, broken down, drowned or worse, and I would have become just another Katrina refugee. The Land Cruiser had well over 200,000 miles on her, and she did everything I asked of her, never failing once. I patted her dashboard. Thank you, thank you. I headed back to camp yet again, having achieved nothing. Best car ever, parked next to the church, not visible, on left. Would have been nice to have working AC, though. SPCAI pulled back up at camp. That had been a waste of time and risky, too. I caught up with John and walked over to the Dateline folks who had been holding on to Stoop. They said he was a little aggressive to other dogs, and they didn't want to keep him. No problem. I took him back. I tied him and Mardi Gras back up to the car on opposite corners with some food and water. A squad of airborne troops came down the street, moving in formation, one on point, the team, and then one in the rear. These guys were once again very professional soldiers. I got out cold bottles of water for them and handed it to them as they passed. It was a very hot day to be moving fully loaded, as they were. They moved on. I thought about it and decided to give up Stoop rather than Mardi Gras. My dog back at home was a rescue dog, and although very loyal and sweet to me, had his own issues, and I didn't need a problem. I asked around more and heard that the Texas SPCA was located in the parking lot of some grocery store over to the west. I left Mardi Gras with the Dateline people this time and headed that way with Stoop. They weren't too difficult to find this time, and they had a little camp going with a cargo truck where they were taking rescued pets. I pulled up and talked with them. They were happy to take Stoop, and asked where I got him. I told them the story and that I didn't really know the address. I hadn't written it down like the others since I took him with me. I really wasn't trying to reunite this little unneutered pit bull with the owners after seeing the big no dogfighting sign and him being abandoned. He was better off with new owners anyway, I figured. I also gave them the second list of dog locations I had written on the styrofoam bowl so they could go and get them when the water was lower. In particular, the two at the top of Harmony were basically on dry land now. They told me they were not allowed to leave the area. Really? I asked. Yup, but apparently you can, they said. Yes, sort of. I was planning on leaving, so I didn't plan to go back out, but they convinced me I should go and get those two dogs. They loaded me up with more dog food and some leashes. I knew I was pushing my luck, particularly after hearing they were not supposed to leave the area, but since I finally had a place to take the dogs, I decided to go and get them. I gave Stoop a big kiss goodbye, and he in kind. That was the last I would see or hear of him. I sure hope his life turned out for the best. I drove back out and headed north. Roundup. I know. I should get out of the city. Don't change the plan. Cardinal rule. Make a plan. Keep the plan. Don't ever fuck with the plan. But they had given me leashes and dog food, so I headed back to the church. I would go and get these two on Harmony, and then try to get at least the one at Jimmy's. Still not sure what kind of dog the one inside was. On the plus side, the water was draining this shallow area out, so soon the traffic and patrols would extend here. I drove past a black dog in a parking lot. I had seen this one before when I got Mardi Gras. I pulled over and tried to coax him over, but he took off running. No way I could get him, so I put out food and water in some bowls. I got up to Harmony and pulled into the empty just down from the house. The two dogs were wandering around by the house. I tried to get them to come over, but then a helicopter appeared overhead, and they retreated into the house, barking madly. Crap! I tried to wave the helicopter off, but it came lower until it was only a few dozen feet up. I showed them my omitted shirt and tried to indicate that I was here for dog rescue, but it kept hovering, and there was no way for me to get the dogs. I drew a big plus symbol, as in the standard sign for rescue, in the dirt on the ground, but the damn thing kept flying over me. Shit. No way to get those dogs. Now they were completely freaked out. I had to give up on them. I got back in the car and drove off, and eventually the helicopter flew away. That had royally screwed up that plan, so I decided to go back to the original plan. They weren't in imminent danger at the moment, and with the helicopter around, I didn't want to go into the house, and even if I did, it was unlikely I would get them without getting bitten. Oh well, the SPCA folks had the addresses now, so they would have to get them later. I left more food and water out near the house and got back in the car. I headed back out and saw a pack of about 3 dogs, so I pulled over again. They took off, but poured out the remains of a dog food bag in a big mound on a sidewalk corner. I was out of water containers. I searched around and found a trash can lid, which I filled. This was getting very frustrating, but at least I had set out multiple food and water points, so these poor guys might make it. Jacked. I drove south on Louisiana and was about to take a left on St. Charles when I caught a sudden motion on my right. Get your hands up! I turned, looked right into a Humvee, screeching to a halt, with at least 6 guys locked and loaded on me, yelling and jumping out of the truck. Oh, shit. They were in my car on both sides in an instant, with their automatic weapons pointed right at my head. 2 more Humvees had pulled up too and unloaded. I could hear the helicopter above. Okay, you guys are in charge. I immediately put my hands up and offered no resistance. You are in charge, I yelled again. Get out of the vehicle. No problem, and I was dragged out by guys from one of the other Humvees that had pulled in behind. Put your hands out now. Up, out. I tried to comply, but they exerted total control over me anyway, and I just let them pull my hands behind me and zip-tie me, force me down on the ground. There seemed to be one guy in charge, and he had another guy search me. Knife! 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 echoed from one person to another down the line of guys. They had found my fold-up safety knife in my shorts pockets and took and secured it. They put me down on my knees, hard. Are there any weapons in the vehicle? No, there is no armor of any kind in the vehicle. Very, very glad all of a sudden that I didn't get a shotgun from my dad, as I had thought to at one time with all the violence the TV was showing. Stay still and shut the fuck up. What were you doing? The helicopter says you were looting. No, I'm just feeding and watering these abandoned animals. The helicopter says you were looting. No, honest, that is not true. I'm just helping out. Same team. Don't you fucking look around. You look straight ahead. Look fucking straight ahead. I comply with all their orders. They are absolutely not fucking around. Internally, my brain is ticking at like 100 miles per hour, but really more like 1,000. I am trying very hard to remain ultra calm. These guys have been sent down to this damn city and have probably been on the edge for days through the violence and looting, and now they think they finally have caught a real looter. I am in really deep shit. I need to stay very calm and try talk my way out of this one. At least I didn't get shot getting pulled over. The helicopter says you were looting. Yes, but no, I said. Yes, what the fuck do you mean, yes? The one guy seems very, very angry. I mean, yes, that is what the helicopter said, but no, it is not true. I have not taken anything from anyone. I am just here helping the animals. Same team? Same team. That seemed to really piss him off. He was a number one asshole for sure. Search the vehicle, the officer in charge orders. They begin taking everything out of my truck and putting it into the street. Gas, chainsaw, dog food, water, clothes, tools, backpack, on and on. Everything. My shit is tossed everywhere. Meanwhile, the press begins to arrive in earnest. I gather there were some news crews that had been following the Humvees as they chased me down. With St. Charles, one of the few roads open, all traffic, including the news, had to pass by. News had been getting scarce. This was probably good stuff to them. Oh crap, I'm going to end up on the fucking news. Video cameras are running, photo flashes going off. Hey, didn't you see us behind you? No, I really didn't. Military vehicles were everywhere, and besides not seeing them, I wouldn't have assumed they were following me anyway. Really? You didn't see us? Really, I did not see you at all. That is fucking great. Turns out they were tailing me, and I didn't pull over. That probably seemed pretty suspicious. Where is your driver's license? As I had left town, I could not find my driver's license. I just couldn't find it. But I had to leave, so I had figured my passport would suffice. Shit. I explained it, and they got my passport out of the side of the door. Wish I had my driver's license. This is unhelpful. They are going through my wallet and the truck. Things are looking worse, but I stay calm. I know they aren't going to find anything looted in the truck. As they emptied it, I was being photographed and videoed by the press. They were keeping away for now, but were asking questions of the men. I was off limits for now. More and more military and press arrive. This is turning into a real circus. They are still pulling everything out and arraying it on the street. 2 guys are weapons locked on me. I do not need them to fuck up, so I stay very still. The one guy holding his weapon on me did not seem that calm. A little too not cool with the situation. I wanted to let him know that this was all okay. No problem. Fully cooperating and not worried at all. Hey, this is all okay. I slowly tell the one guy. I've been in all kinds of situations and even searched a plane wreck before, so this is fine. We're cool. I'm trying to just appear very mellow. Plane wrecks are fun? Oh, crap, I didn't need that. No. Fine. This is fine. Fine. This situation is fine. We're on the same team. Same team. I used to do search and rescue, and I've been to a plane wreck before, so I was saying that this situation is all fine. All good. All good. No more talking with number one asshole. Don't need a setback. I have got to stay on message if I'm going to get out of this. They need to understand that they have it wrong, not me. But to the officer in charge, I've been staying down with the NBC News people. Are you with the news? Tempting to lie, but I don't. No, not exactly with the news. I'm just helping the pets. Stick with the truth at this point. Anything untrue, and I might have to spend a lot of time detained down here, and with no working justice system, no courts and no jails, I might be the one in the portable justice cabinet. Fuck. Time starts to drag. They are on the radio to the helicopter in HQ or wherever. I see a guy holding the omitted ID I made. Shit. No need to be truthful about that. One press lady of Asian origin had a huge lens on her camera and began shooting pictures just inches from my face. I stayed calm and focused on reducing the amount of trouble this was going to cause me. I'm pretty certain that the justice system is currently running on empty, and if I got arrested for looting, I was not going to be released until much, much later. Smiling like no cares in the world, I let her just click away, but didn't give her any information. I needed this to be a picture with no story. Hopefully. I remembered that I had receipts for many of the items I had bought before and during the trip, waders and chainsaw included. Hey, I have receipts for all that. Where? In the center console of the truck. They dig through the center console and pull out handfuls of receipts in assorted paper. They are still pulling everything out and arraying it on the street. Two guys are weapons locked on me. I do not need them to fuck up, so I stay very still. The one guy holding his weapon on me did not seem that calm, a little too not cool with the situation. I wanted to let him know that this was all okay. No problem. Fully cooperating and not worried at all. Hey, this is all okay, I slowly tell the one guy. I've been in all kinds of situations and even searched a plane wreck before, so this is fine. We're cool. I'm trying to just appear very mellow. Plane wrecks are fun? Ah, crap, I didn't need that. No. Fine, this is fine. Fine. This situation is fine. We're on the same team. Same team. I used to do search and rescue, and I've been to a plane wreck before, so I was saying that this situation is all fine. All good. All good. No more talking with number one asshole. Don't need a setback. I have got to stay on message if I'm going to get out of this. They need to understand that they have it wrong, not me. But to the officer in charge, I've been staying down with the NBC News people. Are you with the news? Tempting to lie, but I don't. No, not exactly with the news. I'm just helping the pets. Stick with the truth at this point. Anything untrue, and I might have to spend a lot of time detained down here, and with no working justice system, no courts and no jails, I might be the one in the portable justice cabinet. Fuck. Time starts to drag. They are on the radio to the helicopter, and HQ or wherever. I see a guy holding the omitted ID I made. Shit. No need to be truthful about that. One press lady of Asian origin had a huge lens on her camera and began shooting pictures just inches from my face. I stayed calm and focused on reducing the amount of trouble this was going to cause me. I'm pretty certain that the justice system is currently running on empty, and if I got arrested for looting, I was not going to be released until much, much later. Smiling like no cares in the world, I let her just click away, but didn't give her any information. I needed this to be a picture with no story, hopefully. I remembered that I had receipts for many of the items I had bought before and during the trip, waders and chainsaw included. Hey, I have receipts for all that. Where? In the center console of the truck. They dig through the center console and pull out handfuls of receipts and assorted paper. Soon they have every single thing out of the truck onto the street. Gas cans, waders, chainsaw, dog food bags, med kit, all of it. I knew how to pack for a trip like this, but I didn't expect it to be littered about. What a mess. This sucks. I am going to be the top of the news at the top of the hour. I fucking knew I should have fucking left. So much for low key. Front page, Katrina's last looter. Fuck. More and more questions from the press. There are probably 20 of them there by now. What is your name? I don't want to tell you my name. Why not? I just ignored them. How can we help you if we don't know your name? I don't think you guys are going to help me. How self-centered to think that giving them my name to use in their lame and inaccurate reporting would help me. I know they would just use it to ruin my name. What a bunch of pricks. This is all fine. These boys are just doing their job. I'm just helping the pets. This will all be straightened out soon. There is no news here. There is no issue here. I answered more and more questions from the military like, why do you have all this cash? There's no electricity, so of course I brought cash. I said, please let me call my guy and he will explain. They agree to let me get John on the phone. Have you ever tried to tell someone how to use your cell phone with no hands? Not very helpful. I did reach John and explained, and he said he would head over. Meanwhile, the ITN lady I met earlier arrived. Hey, I yelled out to her. She totally pretended not to have met me. What the fuck? At one point, one of the news crews asked, hey, when we were following the Humvees, we came up on a pile of dog food on a corner. Was that you? Yeah, that was me. I left it out for the dogs running around there. Hey, the empty bag is in the back of the truck. Good evidence for my side of the story. Even in a city of trash, I don't litter. Instant karma. John arrived with some of the NBC folks. He was a former Ranger, and he talked these guys down and explained I wasn't looting. He got them square, and that got me square. Or so I thought. 2 weeks later, when I was back in New Orleans, breaking into homes wholesale to free the pets, I ran into the Humane Society, leaving out food. They were dead set against breaking in since the owners would return and were critical of what I was doing then. I already knew the owners weren't coming back. From TV, from the thousands and thousands of ruined cars, these people were never coming back. They were more or less content to let these animals continue to die. Idiots! Okay, we're going to let you go. Sorry to detain you. No problem. You're just doing your job. It is all cool. They cut the zip ties and hand me back my wallet. The news crews faded away at some point. Can we help you reload? No, thank you. That's okay. You guys are busy. I'm free, and all I want to do is to get my shit and put some distance between me and this. I was chucking all my stuff back in the vehicle, and some of the guys were helping me. Except for the one guy, the other military guys were actually very cool. But I could hear the head officer on the radio have a heated conversation with the helicopter along the lines of, yes, we did search the car, but there is nothing. And from the radio, search it again and detain him. Again. Boom. Re-zip tied and put back on my knees, this time even tighter. Man, can you loosen that? No, if I loosen it, I'm going to have to redo it, and I'm going to do it right, which will be even worse. Okay, then forget it. The one guy who was kind of dick before is still that way. More photos and video. One Asian lady was right in my face with a giant lens. I am not worried. This will get straightened out. Chris Barnes from a radio interview came over, and he was live on the radio at that time, so, okay, I talked with him. He wanted to get my side of the story. I said there is only one side here. These guys are just doing their jobs, and I'm just helping the animals. We were on for some minutes, and I explained what was going on. During that, they began pulling everything out of the car a second time, all backspread all over the middle of the road. Good thing I was only half done repacking from last time. Still no loot found, of course, only my rescue gear, food and stuff for the animals. Then I hear from a few yards away, yeah, we ran into that guy. Yesterday. He said he was feeding dogs. It was the same platoon of airborne I had met in the alley. By now these guys are convinced that I'm not really doing anything wrong. They had already let me go once. One of the nice guys said, "Sorry, man." I replied, "No worries, guy, you're just doing your job." I think they are getting bored. They tell command that they've researched the car. Things might be looking up again, but things can still go downhill. I'm told we are now waiting for the New Orleans Ph.D. to arrive. Yet another, oh shit moment. I was free and now I'm probably fucked. I tell one of the guys with his weapon on me, "Hey, you know what is going on here. I'm just helping out. Please tell the police. I don't want to be arrested for real." Okay. Meanwhile, John is out with the NBC folks doing his job and cannot come back for a second trip. I managed to convince one of the news ladies to go down and talk to the SPCA people. They let me sit cross-legged after a time. Finally, about an hour and a half since I was redetained, the New Orleans police pulled up. Captain Julius Levy, older, talked with the one guy, then he went and spoke with another officer for a few minutes. "Okay, we're going to let you go. Thank you. The city is under a mandatory evacuation. Feeding dogs is not a permissible activity." Me? Okay. What a bunch of complete bullshit. There never was a mandatory evacuation, just one they decided to enforce. I was planning on leaving anyway, just went back for those 2 dogs. "We don't need any cowboys here." Okay, whatever. Totally ridiculous, but I didn't disagree with him. What this place needed was like 1,000 cowboys. As they were giving me back my items, Levy made me count the money. I don't want to count it. These boys didn't steal from me. Count it anyway. Fine, it's all there, of course. I quickly load up and get the hell out of there. I've been New Orleans' most famous person for about the past 4 hours. I don't know whether or not the press was able to get my name. I drive back to the NBC station. Time to pick up Mardi Gras and cruise. John tries to convince me to stay, take a nap, leave in the morning. No thanks. I'm fine. Time to get out of here and back to someplace normal. I walk over to the Dateline RV. 2 New Jersey troopers meet me. "We really appreciate what you are doing and all, but you have sort of taken refuge here with NBC, and they don't want to be making news, you see. So, you need to leave this area." "No problem. I'm leaving New Orleans right now." "Cool. We are dog people, and you're doing good stuff. We appreciate what you're doing, but you understand." No hard feelings, guys. They were told to tell me that, so they did. Now, whether they had any sort of right to tell me to leave a public street is highly questionable, as was almost all the actions of the military and police down there, keeping people out of the city and completely dulling any civilian response while at the same time allowing whatever news person who wanted in. But at least they were very nice about it. I left and began the long drive home. Return. I got back home, and when I got out of the car, I was struck how quiet it was without the helicopters. Although I had the thought in the back of my mind, I did not actively plan to return to New Orleans. I cleaned my stuff and got the hitch put on the truck, but never fully unpacked. Mostly I didn't think it was worth returning without a boat, but as it turned out, I soon returned to New Orleans for a second, almost equally bizarre trip. I settled back into work sort of, but I kept on top of the situation down there. I spoke again with Chris Barnes, and he hooked me up with a guy from Best Friends who had contacted him after hearing our little on-the-spot interview. He was organizing some animal rescue, and I told him the situation and gave him as much info as I could. A woman I had previously dated wanted me to return and take her with me. I told her I would not go without a boat, and she agreed to buy a small John boat, and we started making plans. She and I went to a local dealer, and she bought a small John boat with a little motor. She also agreed that I would be in complete charge, as I did not want to get her hurt. I called the Best Friends guy, and through him and other sources was finally in touch with the Posados Animal Rescue Group. Based in the Northwest, they had made some arrangements with a kind local to use a farm outside of New Orleans as their base and were performing ongoing animal rescues. After a quite delayed start, we got on the road almost 2 weeks after I had left. The trip was blazing hot once again, but at least this time the spare gasoline was back in the boat. Ugly trip, even with 2 drivers. I drove the first large chunk, and then she took over. I dozed for a bit, but soon we ran into a blinding fog in which she couldn't drive, so I took back over. We drove the shorter route this time since I knew the bridge was definitely back open, so the trip only took about 18 or so hours. We headed to where Posados had organized their animal rescue on a farm southwest of the city, and arrived at about 6:30 in the morning on the Friday. They had organized right before their 7 a.m. group meeting. Exhausted, I slept for a few minutes. Posados had quite a busy operation with a very large main barn as the care and shelter area for the pets. They had some number of vets and other personnel, cleaning, treating, feeding, watering and walking, all manners of these poor creatures. Most were so happy and excited after their ordeal to be around humans, but some were too sick or injured, and most were severely emaciated. A very tough thing to see. They had set up a triage area for new arrivals, and it was very busy even at this hour. It was a very mixed group, people from all over, including several animal control offices, a sheriff, and a couple of guys who made a pile of money growing medical marijuana in California and had piled in a car to come help out. The staff sorted out who was going out into the field that day and gave us blue T-shirts with yellow Posados on it. We formed a caravan and headed out. On our way into the city, we a last stop at a sort of used furniture store charity. The group picked up some supplies there and filled some water containers. At the doorway was a sweet and lovely but painfully thin Great Dane, a recent rescue, but already coming back. Leaving there, we were all waved through the National Guard checkpoint after the head car had a quick word. Driving into the city, we made camp at some random gas station. We split into teams and headed out into several different areas. The houses here had suffered more than the area where I had been last time, but now it was all dry ground. Dry, littered, filthy ground. We left the boat and car at the gas station and joined a team of about 7 people with a van. We sort of paired up, moved down the block. We went house to house, listening intently, and entering houses where we heard any noise. These were mostly dogs, since cats, birds and rabbits just aren't as vocal. As we found them, we brought them to our van, where we had crates. They were watered and fed and taken back to the gas station rendezvous to be triaged and put into a large cargo truck. B and E. If I was in the amateur leagues at opening doors on my first trip, I now moved up to semi-pro as I began to polish my breaking and entering skills. These houses were relatively well protected with metal security gates over the doors and windows. The 3-pound mallet did a lot of damage, and sometimes I just beat a door all the way in. Other times it took a group of us working with crowbars. I broke off doorknobs, I smashed through doors, I broke out windows. Whatever. As the morning wore on, some of our group got a little frustrated with the pace, and we informally began a new policy of breaking into every home, one right after another, straight down the block, and we definitely found a lot more animals this way, many of them already dead. Searching these houses was dangerous, between some grave structural problems, floors and walls giving way, and jumbled interiors, not to mention some extreme mold. One guy in our group was out in front of a house and stepped on a shingle with a nail sticking up, straight through his boot and up into his foot. He pulled it out, and we got his boot off and gave immediate first aid and sent him back to the gas station. He was fine but likely to get infected, so he got sent out. I heard a kitten in one house, but when after breaking the door lock, I found that the refrigerator had floated around on its back and blocked the front door. The only other way to get in was through a small side window, so I broke out the glass and put a towel over the sill and squirmed through. The house was overtaken by mold and humidity and rotten food and decay. The furniture was a jumbled mess. I worked around and through it, but now I could not find the kitten. I don't know if it was hiding, but hopefully it got out of the broken window later. As I worked my way back out through the window, a guy pulled up in driveway of the house next door. He was a fireman and had been allowed back in the city. He loaded up his pickup truck with all his possessions that were worth anything. Nice guy, but he had pretty much lost everything. Meanwhile, some of the team had run into the National Guard, who were not pleased at all that we were breaking into all the houses. There was some threat of arrest, but that didn't materialize, so we decided to just move over a few blocks. I was headed down one block when I heard the unmistakable sheesh of highly pressurized gas escaping. As I got closer, it was very loud, the kind of gas leak that levels entire blocks. I used a can of spray paint I had brought to mark gas leak on the road, and an arrow so that it could be avoided and fixed at some point by someone, and we skipped over that area. In another house, we found a very nice large bird of some sort, and we got that out too. I was falling out in the heat and from lack of sleep, and I went back to the gas station and decided to stay there. I helped out with the pets that were coming in, and then got to take a small hot nap. I got up and helped out some more, and then it was time to get out of there. I donated some of the gas I had brought in the boat to one of the other vehicles. We rescued more than 75 animals of all kinds that day, and then we caravanned back. Back at the farm, we caught up from the guys from California. They had started a business, legally growing medical marijuana, and had made a pile of money. They had used that to buy some other businesses, and one was restoring a mako shark. Meanwhile, the barn was even busier with the new load of animals. They got triaged and given medical care and food and water. There was a regular line of dogs being walked about the place. Quite nice of the owner. However, they did not want people camping out there, so we had to head out and find a place to stay for the night. Bayou. We found a little concrete bunker of a restaurant a few miles away, named something like Teas. We caught a cheap meal there and engaged the owners with what we were doing. They said it was okay if we slept in the car over in the small parking lot to the right. It was right on a canal or some little bit of water. Well, it was still blazing hot that night, and what was worse were the mosquitoes. We had to keep the windows down to have any breeze whatsoever, but those damn things attacked us. I imagine they normally have a lot of them, but with all the standing water left from the hurricane, the place was thick with them. Stupidly, I didn't have any repellent along, so we barely slept. In the morning, we headed back to the farm and again met up with the California guys. They told us some crazy stories about their trip over. As things got organized, the Posados people decided the really big guy wasn't fit enough to go in, and his feelings were pretty hurt, but he stayed back. The other two decided to ride with us. We were the last people in the caravan, but before we got to the furniture store, we blew a tire. We pulled off, and the caravan left us behind. We took the boat off of the hitch, changed the tire, and got the boat back on, but it took some time. Fortunately, I remembered where the furniture store was and made it there. We were confused when we arrived because they told us the caravan had not yet arrived. We thought they should have been there. They did arrive about 20 minutes later and apparently had pulled off to wait for us, but we had somehow missed them. Regardless, we got organized back up for the trip into the city. We were all driving over to another area, swapping storied back and forth in the car, when a good-sized military convoy cut into the middle of our group right in front of us. I stayed behind them while the lady I was with began screaming red in the face for to pass them. No way. I reminded her she agreed I was in charge and that she had no idea what was going on. If we had passed them, we would have been pulled over, and I would have spent another day zip-tied. Not good enough for her, she just kept screaming and berating me. I had known better than to bring her. The guys in the back stayed quiet and let me deal with it. We caught up with the group which had parked at another gas station. We were now in an area in which the water had been much, much higher. We all got out some maps and made some plans as to who would do what. She and I got back in the car and headed even further north where the water was still up, since we had a boat while the other people were going to work. We worked our way up there and parked at the north end of a street, with the levee on the left as we faced south. The water was too low for the boat, so we started wading in. We really didn't think there was much hope of finding any pets alive in this area. It was now weeks after the flood, and the houses in this area had been fully submerged. Buddies. As we worked our way south, we ran across a very, very large dog. Huge. It would not let us anywhere near it, and we were almost bitten. We moved further south, and there was another dog near a shed. Surely a nice dog at some point, it was now behaving very viciously towards us and started following us back, barking and snarling at us as we retreated. I thought for sure we were going to get bitten, but as we got back to the car, it returned from where it had come. We decided to go over one street west and work down that one. No luck. The only thing in this area were those two dogs. We decided to go back over and try again to get the one near the shed. As we went back down, The dog was again standing outside the shed in the backyard. It barked but moved away. We finally could see that it was protecting its friend, another dog who lay dead in the shed. The lady was adamant that we should try to get the dog, but again, it was impossible without getting bitten. After a lengthy argument, I convinced her we had to leave. We headed out and around and back south and then west. We saw two people, a big tall guy and a smaller woman with badges on the side of the road, and pulled over. They spoke, and they were from the Humane Society. They were adamant that what we were doing was wrong and that we shouldn't go into houses to get pets. Whatever. They had their policy, but I had mine. After a lengthy discussion, we finally just got back in the car and left them to themselves. We turned north and caught sight of another dog. She was worked up from our failure to get either dog earlier, so she jumped out and tried to coax the dog. I got out, leaving the car running. The dog started to run away with her, and I following. After a block, it was obvious that we were not going to get him, but she would just not give it up. She ran off chasing after him through the backyards with me yelling at her to stop. Crap, I had to go back since I couldn't leave the running car. If it got stolen, we were screwed. A tactical error on my part, but damn it, she was supposed to listen to me. I circled around, figuring I would catch up, but the road was blocked by a downed tree, so I circled the other way. But again, it was blocked. Now I had totally lost her. I parked and started running through the area calling for her. After about 10 minutes, I found her with the dog, nowhere to be seen. We headed back to the gas station with her, so upset and talking on and on about that dog. She needed to get a grip on herself. Again, I knew from the start I should never ever have brought her along. I was totally pissed she had run off. At the gas station HQ, we caught up with a more professional dog rescue lady who agreed to come back with us and bring a dog pole, one of those with the loop on the end. We took her vehicle, which had a very large dog crate, and parked again to the top of the street. The dog at the house near the top surprised us coming around to the front. It was tricky, but she was very good and managed to get hold of it, and we loaded it up into the crate. Then we went and did the same with the other dog. 2 victories and no bites, only close calls. Goodbye. At this point, the main issue was that the next hurricane, Rita, was coming, and the city was being closed off for real, with major evacuations of all the remaining areas that were still populated, and no one was going to be allowed back. There would be no more dog rescue. That was over. Any left at this point were doomed. Their owners would never return for them. We decided it was time to hightail it out of New Orleans over the bridge, and ran straight into a miles-long traffic jam. We slowly crawled along. Some people were not so lucky and had run out of gas. What little we had left, we needed to keep. These poor people were pulled off to the left with their dead cars and trucks loaded up with their ruined crap. We finally made it through and found a hotel west of Jackson, Michigan. We showered and decided to go out to eat and hit the local Applebee's. It was time for a big fat drink, so we ordered at the bar only to be told it was a dry county. You are kidding me! The bartender tells us we have to go into Jackson proper to get a drink, but we had no energy for that, so we ate there. The next morning, we drove back, and I dropped her and her boat off back at her house. I went home and just crashed out. At the end of the day, the whole thing was so tragic because it was simply avoidable from the start. I hope never to witness such a cauldron of incompetence in the U.S. as happened to New Orleans during Katrina, and straight up I expect that next time the average citizen will get up off the couch and go help. Prologue. I never found out what happened to Stoop. I gave Mardi Gras to a friend, however she was hit and killed by a car 2 weeks later. We tracked down the owner of the last dog by the shed and alerted them as to what became of their pet.